Good afternoon. Thank you for tuning into Leadership Matters with the People's Doctors, informing leaders, inspiring solutions. I'm Undraye Howard, your lead co-host for this afternoon, and delighted to have with me my co-host, Dr. Sheryl White and Dr. Loretta Howard. Today, we are going to continue our discussion that we started this month on finding joy, wellness for leaders. And we have a great guest with us on this afternoon that's going to take us through some of that finding joy, wellness for leaders, through a leadership model that was created some time ago. And so we're excited to have Tom Woll join us, and we'll do a bit more introduction of Tom Woll as we get down into the show script. But before we do that, I want to continue to encourage folks to continue to send your questions in for the People's Doctors. They've been informative. I think Dr. Loretta, Dr. Sheryl, we've been learning a lot from the audience questions. And so I've been really excited to get the questions and see what might be in store next. But we've got two powerful questions. And of course, we'll ask one of those questions now, and then we'll save the second question, hopefully, for our second or third segment of the program. But here's our first question from an audience member. That question is, what should energize leaders more and why? Should it be adapting to change or creating change? What should energize leaders more and why from your perspective? Adapting to change or creating it? Dr. White, how about I throw this over to you first to chime in?
Hmm. Yes, well, that's a thought-provoking question. The word should always throws me a little bit off. I will say, because that maybe relies on maybe people's preferences and personalities. So I'll take the should off
Okay,
and I'll say
okay.
for my own personal preference, I think creating change. And I think for many leaders who really enjoy visioning, I think the act of stirring up hope and visioning the possibilities is creates energy.
Mm,
And so I won't say what should, because I think there's some people based on their personality, they might get a little bit more, feel more comfortable, and in their comfort, have some comfort in adapting to change. Yet I will go with, for myself, my own preference would be stepping into that space of being able to stir up hope and create a vision would be most energizing for my own preference. And I think people who tend to be more intuitive in their personality might prefer that as well.
yeah. Thank you, Dr. Sheryl. Dr. Loretta, how about you?
Okay, well, first of all, I agree with everything Dr. Sheryl said. It's like I had to make a choice, one or the other. I think they're both really essential for a leader to have, but when I think of adapting to change, I think of reactions, somebody who's reacting to something. Whereas if you're creating it, you're more proactive, the visionary part that Dr. White talked about. And then there's that, your passion seems to come through, you're sharing a vision, there's more of a sense of purpose. So I agree with what she said. And it's how you interpret it or what you think of it. But for me, adapting means that I have to react to something. And I much rather create it because
Mhm.
that's more of the bigger vision.
Mm, mm. Yeah, thank you. Thank you both. I totally agree with both of you. For me, and this is personal, it is the creating change, right? That really gets me excited and really energizes me as part of the process in terms of being a leader. I think when you're able to create change, you're kind of operating from a position of vision, of your own energy. You see the possibilities that others might miss, or you might even define possibilities differently. So there's a lot of the ability to kind of play in the game of the creation versus adaptation, which is important, and don't want to discount that or dismiss that, but it's a bit more for me as a leader, more reactive and more limiting. So I think, certainly working within those constraints, certainly kind of put parameters around the energy. And so I certainly would rely much more on the creation side. So, and again, that's my personality too as well. Tom Wall, how about you? You want to chime in on that question as well?
Well, I always feel more serene when I can be creating the future, the
Mm,
opportunity for the future that I want to try and create.
yeah.
And I like serenity.
Mm,
I really value being in a position to plan instead of react. I like to respond.
mm, yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. I love it. I love it. So, well, thank each of you for the answering that question, and hopefully the audience member satisfied with some of our responses as part of that process. But love it. Keep sending those questions in, audience, and we'll try to at least capture two of those as we do this show each week. Now on to our show. This whole theme, this revolutionary leadership model, really creating wellness for leaders through a revolutionary leadership model, which kind of combines a number of dimensions in terms of navigating through continuous change, adapting to the environment, being proactive. But there's something in this particular model that I thought interested myself and our special guest Tom Wall. I think probably co-created this maybe some years ago, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, and truly resonated, I think, for the topic that we have today, the Finding Joy Wellness for Leaders theme that we are kind of feasting on today. And so we are so glad to have with us Tom Wall, who's going to kind of lead us into understanding this revolutionary leadership model in a deeper capacity. And Tom, a nonprofit strategist with nearly 40 years, if probably not more, of leadership experience in Northeast Ohio, but is global in terms of his reach, his impact, his influence. Very insightful thought leader in our nation, and certainly just so glad to have him join us today as we kind of dive into this revolutionary leadership model that really takes a look at finding joy and understanding wellness for leaders as well. So welcome, Tom.
Good to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. So, Tom, won't you add to what I just expressed? Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, and we'll kind of push this conversation along the way here.
Well, probably two different careers. One as an executive for 38 years in Northeastern Ohio. And for the last 15 years, I have been a consultant and coach, working primarily with leaders that want to learn how to become change leaders.
Mm,
And certainly, over the course of the last almost decade, the model, Undraye, that you and I worked on so hard, the revolutionary change leadership model, has been a guidepost for me. And one of the things that I love about what you and I developed is that the practice manual that we wrote is basically a curriculum. And you have an opportunity to be able to introduce leaders to, well, what's involved. There's 4 capacities that we identified: cognitive capacity, emotional capacity, spiritual capacity, and behavioral capacity. And the practice manual that we developed offers 10, if you will, factors that lead to the competencies. And they're all explained within the practice manual. And the beauty of the model is that you can start off just with the boss, start off with someone who's trying to learn it, and then the curriculum is there for the leader to take it to the rest of the organization. And that's what I really like about the practice manual, is that in effect, you can train the trainer, and then the trainer can implement the change. It's kind of exciting.
yeah, it is. And yeah, I'm getting even more excited as you talk about it, Tom. So, so yeah, so in full transparency, again, that Tom and I kind of co-created this revolutionary model and thought it applies so well to, again, wellness for leaders in organizations, and so very powerful. So why don't we dig a little deeper into this and maybe talk about that first capacity around the cognitive piece. And so, Dr. White, if I could turn this over to you, you can throw out that first question to Tom.
Yeah, thank you. I'd love to hear more, Tom, about the cognitive wellness, and then maybe asking you to expand on How does expanding one's thinking beyond reactive leadership create mental clarity and reduce cognitive overwhelm?
Well,
A
when
sense
we
of
were talking
overwhelm.
earlier in response to the audience question, I was saying that, my goal is always to be serene. And that comes from not being tactical. You can, of course, fall into the trap as a leader of solving problems one at a time as they come up, as though they're totally disconnected from one another. But the revolutionary change leadership model calls for us to seek systemic solutions. Try to imagine how all of our problems are somehow dynamically interconnected and look for those 3 or 4 solutions that may solve a dozen problems. And when you approach it that way, and you're not looking at it one at a time, when you're looking at it systemically, you're actually finding calm and peace in the process of change, right? And to me, that's critical as a leader, that I want to always be calm whenever I can, and a plan lets me feel calm. And when I feel calm, then my executive functions can emerge. I can solve problems better. I can make decisions better. I can see things as they truly are. And being calm is an important part of the answer to that question. Very important.
Wonderful. I love it. Thank you.
Great.
Okay.
And before
Stay.
you start, we may want to take
Okay.
a break here because there's so much to cover.
Okay.
And I think this would be a good time to take a short break. But when we return, we're going to turn this over to Dr. Loretta and dig deeper with Tom around this cognitive capacity around wellness after this commercial break. So please stay tuned. We'll be right back with more on Leadership Matters with the People's Doctors, informing leaders, inspiring solutions. All right, we are back with more on Leadership Matters with the People's Doctors. And for those who are just joining us, we're just delving into our conversation with our special guest, Tom Woll, my co-host, Dr. Sheryl White, Dr. Loretta Howard, as we dig into this revolutionary leadership model that really hinges on these 4 capacities that leaders should have in terms of completing and ascertaining wellness. And so I know we're getting to this another portion of the cognitive capacity. So Dr. Loretta, let me hand this over to you for our next question.
All right. Thank you. Tom, in alignment with the cognitive wellness, how does having a clear framework for change, either evolutionary or revolutionary, reduce decision fatigue and create mental peace?
Excellent question. what the model calls for us to do is create a vision for the future. So often in our planning, we scan the current local environment and then look to assess our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. But the change leadership model calls for us not to say, how do we respond to the situations that are current, but how do we prepare for the situations that will be real 3 years from now, for example. So we're actually preparing for a future state because of our vision. And the plan shows us how to get there. Because if we use the current environment to make our plan, we'll be 3 years behind the futures curve in 3 years. But if we imagine what it is that the future holds for us and what we need to be and what we need to be able to do 3 years from now, and then build our plan off that, then everyone feels a sense of calm, because when they see the vision and read the plan, then they know this person knows what they're doing. And we want to follow this person because the plan itself creates positive energy and it excites people. And when you have a good plan that prepares you for the future, you actually create more energy by implementing the plan than it takes to implement the plan. So you end up with a plus positive energy flow within the organization.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I love that positive energy piece, which is really key with the cognitive wellness. That's excellent. Great. Tom, let's talk about the emotional capacity of this revolutionary model. Part of the emotional wellness is really, again, thinking about how we're able to manage, our feelings to some degree, and being able to kind of think through that process. But what joy do you find in being a proactive change agent rather than feeling, I don't know, feeling rather victimized by circumstances, if that makes any sense?
Yeah, if you are a boat without a sail, just being pushed by the waves, it leaves you frustrated. Now, clearly, there's nothing we can do as leaders to eliminate the stress of our work, but there's a lot we can do to build protective factors into our work environment for our staff so that the stress of the work does not become distress, does not become fatigue, and does not become burnout. The positive factors that we can build in, the protective factors that we can build right into our work environment, can make sure that people feel good about change instead of being afraid of change or angry at change or anxious about change.
That's great. Excellent. Dr. Loretta, how about you? Next question here.
Okay, all right. On that emotional part of wellness, how does developing emotional resilience through revolutionary leadership impact your overall life satisfaction?
That's good. That's a very good question. I was working with a dozen people a few months ago around change leadership, and I asked them to talk with me about resiliency. And I said, now, let me be real clear. I want to come out of this with your list of what resilient people tend to have inside themselves. All right. And what they said is that resilient people tend to be very self-aware. They tend to be capable of being self-regulated emotionally. They tend to be self-motivated to learn and grow, and they tend to be committed to self-care. Now, here's the beauty of this, is that those are all skills. Now, some folks are just born with this stuff, all right? But these are skills that we can teach, people can learn, and organizations can benefit from: self-awareness, self-regulation, self-motivated to learn and grow, and by being committed to self-care. those are foundational principles of the revolutionary change leadership model.
Mhm.
Yes.
Great.
So I know another portion of that you introduced and would love to hear more about it is the behavioral wellness. Love to hear you share more about what the behavioral wellness is about and how does taking purposeful action that's aligned with one's values create a sense of personal integrity and well-being.
Well, I really love the two words purposeful action. And the reason I love them is we do a lot of acting that is not necessarily terribly purposeful. And the beauty of a plan is that all of our action within the plan is by definition purposeful. Okay, so that's the first thing. And the other thing, the model calls for us, yes, to always stay consistent with our values, but the model also calls for us to always be in the process of revisiting our values, because sometimes our values may need to be clarified. Let me give an example. Throughout the child welfare field for 60 years, there was really a very strong focus on children. As appropriate, it was good. There was nothing wrong with the values, but within the field, as research continued, we began to realize that research suggests very clearly that children grow best in families. All right, and so we began to shift the values from just child-centered to family-focused. All right, and it is possible to integrate those two value sets. Right, and a lot of people in the field had to wrestle with what does that mean and how do I, but the process of struggling to integrate different values is a part of the model, right? Because it says always reconsider, and then, yes, you have purposeful action that is connected to values that you have reevaluated and recommitted to. And when you do that, then it really feels good when you move forward, making sure that you're going to solidify your reconsidered values and you're going to have purposeful action to do something you know is important.
Thank you.
Oh, excellent. And Tom, I'm gonna throw another question in there for you. So we've talked about two of the four capacities that's associated with the revolutionary leadership model, this emotional piece and this behavioral piece, is a cognitive piece. Is there one more important than the other? Is the cognitive more important than the emotional?
I happen to believe that all four have to work synchronously.
Okay.
Because yes, it would be easy to say, for example, each of us has an area where we have the greatest strength. So we're going to naturally say that's the most important. But having worked with folks, I mean, I have worked with leaders that are great in one of these four areas, and then they may not be as great in another. And so what I say to them is, please make sure that your team has someone that is strong in the area where you are not strong. All right. And then listen to that person's perspective, because it's important to include the perspective. Now, I happen to believe that all four are very, very important and would never choose, though when we're actually looking at where we can fall down as leaders, we probably fall down more often in the emotional capacity than any other.
Yeah.
And is there a why you think that is that happens?
Well, when you're in a high stress environment, sometimes you can build up some bad habits. You're swimming in a sea of anxiety, anger, and fear. And quite frankly, a lot of leaders have absorbed secondary trauma as a result of all of the stress that they have helped others to work through. And we really need to make sure that we're always checking those three powerful emotions, anxiety, anger, and fear. When you're self-aware, then you know what your normal range are for those three emotions. And when you start to get toward the edge of those of your normal range, you know how to back off. And when you do know how to do that, you can be a change leader. When you don't know how to do that, you really can't, right? Because you're not going to be able to show the respect for your staff that you need to be showing at times of very high stress. So the emotional capacity is often where leaders fall down.
Interesting perspective and thoughts, and certainly anxiety, anger, and fear. One could see how, as you talked about earlier, that could really impact that executive function and one's ability to self-regulate when it might be so important to do so. So I always think of that emotional intelligence with regards to something happens and making sure we self-regulate before we respond.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you breaking that down. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Well, good. This would be a good time to take a short break. I mean, we've got so much more to talk to Tom about. There's two other capacities which are just as equally important. We're going to hinge on those when we return, as well as also want to get in the second audience question too, so we don't want to miss out on that. So we'll definitely talk a little bit about that when we return as part of the process. And so, again, we want you to stay tuned. We'll be back after this short commercial break. And thank you for joining Leadership Matters with the People's Doctors, informing leaders, inspiring solutions. And we're back with more on Leadership Matters with the People's Doctors. For those who are just joining us, I'm Undraye Howard, lead co-host with my co-host today, Dr. Sheryl White, Dr. Loretta Howard, and our very special guest today, Tom Woll, in helping us understand more about this revolutionary leadership and thinking about the four various capacities that truly, I would say, create a much a more inspired, a much better, as well as a well, if you could use that term, a leader within organizations. And so it's just been fascinating to kind of cover the first two dimensions of the revolutionary leadership and thinking about the cognitive and emotional piece. Yeah, let's delve into the third piece. And again, we want to get to the audience question as well, but let's talk about that third piece and then maybe delve into our second audience question, if that's okay. So Dr. White, let's talk about this third capacity, this behavioral wellness piece for Tom.
Mhm. Yeah, I think we went there a little bit before the break with Tom thinking or sharing and really, I think, pulling out that purposeful action aligned with our values. Dr. Loretta, I'm going to toss it over to you to
Okay.
continue diving into that behavioral wellness.
Okay, thank you. Still in alignment with behavioral wellness, Tom, how does modeling the change you want to see contribute to your sense of personal authenticity?
You know, this question is probably at the center of the universe of change leadership, because one of the things that I work on with change leaders is be careful what you ask of others because you have to deliver that consistently. And anytime you vary from the consistency, it's going to be noted. And folks are going to question your sincerity as a result of that. Now, that having been said, when a leader is able to say, as a part of our vision and as a part of our plan, we're always going to do this and we're never going to do that. When they are able then to be consistent with the always and never in their own behavior, and when they are able to convince their senior leadership team to also be consistent in that, now you've got the drums in the background that will keep people marching. All right. And it's just very important to make sure. I always work with leaders and say, be very careful what you put on that list because you don't have to do that all the time. And it's good for people to realize that once you start a change leadership initiative, everybody will watch the leader much more carefully.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Tom, we might as well talk about this fourth capacity too, as well, to kind of round this whole discussion up and then get into an audience discussion question. And that fourth capacity that's attached to this revolutionary leadership model is this spiritual wellness. I always have thought about the spiritual piece being something that is larger than oneself. So, how does serving something larger than yourself through this revolutionary leadership model perhaps impact overall life satisfaction for a leader?
I've always believed that most people want to be involved in something that's bigger than themselves, but they also want to be involved in something that they can explain. So it helps to have the vision, all right, and it helps to have the plan because then people know what to say about this bigger than themselves adventure that they're involved in. I think that when we have a good vision and a good plan, people get very excited and they feel proud to be a part of something that they can help to create, which is the future. You're not being battered by the waves in a boat without a sail. You are someone who is actually charting a course, and you are an owner of that charting, and you are an owner of that course, and that makes people feel very proud.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Definitely. Definitely. Very powerful. Very powerful. So
Mhm.
these capacities, the cognitive, the emotional, the behavioral, the spiritual, they really work in tandem or should work in tandem for impactful leaders. And when they work in tandem, certainly this sense of wellness and being able to take care of self as a leader really comes into play. And I think that's really what stands out for me as we think about this revolutionary leadership model, which is really, really very powerful to understand. So absolutely. Great. We're going to dig a little deeper into the revolutionary model, but I want to make sure I address our second audience question that came through as well. And so, and that question that came from an audience was, what role as a leader should I take on when it comes to self-compassion in sustaining my team and leading to overall wellness, I should say, as part of that process? What role as a leader should I take on when it comes to self-compassion in sustaining my team and leading to overall wellness? Dr. Sheryl, you want to take a swipe at that one?
Hmm. Well, I think that self-compassion starts with self. And I think of compassion and self-compassion. I would think of maybe the Dalai Lama's motto with regards to just like when we're extending compassion toward others, if I'm extending compassion toward myself, I might spend some time thinking about trying to understand myself, trying to get in touch with my own feelings, trying to get clarity on my own values and what's important to me so I can best help myself with regards to reducing any pain points that I may have in my life and increasing joy. And I think starting with self and doing that can one position us to be at our best and then creating space and even sometimes helping our our team members be able to step back and spend some time thinking about that for themselves and having them also engage in some self-compassion and maybe even be able to put voice to what might help to reduce some of the pain points that they might be experiencing and even increase some of the joy.
Great, great. Dr. Loretta, how about you?
I agree with everything Dr. Sheryl said, as usually I do. But I'm thinking also of what Mr. Wall said about having that self-awareness and
Mhm.
self-care and how very important that is for us to do. And I think as a leader, I think of the staff that I currently have. I'm okay with if I make a mistake, let them know that there's a vulnerable side to me as well. I try to show others grace, but I also have to show myself grace because I'm not perfect. I have messed up and I'm not going to beat myself up about that. So just kind of letting people know it's, if you make a mistake, okay, we work from that and we do better the next time. I'm a firm believer in having some flexibility sometimes with workloads. People have bad days. Can we delegate something to someone else or have them, or even cross training, switching and doing different things, but just letting people know the importance of just having that grace for themselves and having it for me as well. And making sure that if someone is going through something, trying to get resources for them to help them, because sometimes we all need help. We do. And I'm never too proud to ask for help, and I let them know it's okay to ask for help as well.
That's great. Yeah. And I would just add to that. I think that's why this discussion today is so timely, especially when you're talking about that self-compassion leaders should have. Because if I'm more cognitive and I'm 95% cognitive and 5% behavioral, there's no way I can model as a great leader this self-compassion authentically. It doesn't come across authentic, right? And so I think it's important to have the balance of these four pieces, this behavioral, spiritual, cognitive, emotional in check, because then I can model what matters the most. Because my team is watching. My team is watching how I treat my own self, how well I deal with mistakes and deal with setbacks and struggle with challenges. Plus, as already been stated, it really creates that space for imperfection, right? That, none of us are perfect. And so normalizing the reality that no one is perfect and we all have off days and we all make mistakes, and we face personal challenges is real. And so creating that space within my team to say, there's no perfection here. We are going to make mistakes, but we support each other as part of that process, I think is important. And the last piece I'll just add to that question is making sure I distinguish between standards and self-punishment. I mean, you can maintain a high performance expectation while rejecting toxic perfectionism and helping your team understand that the self-compassion really improves performance by really reducing the mental energy wasted and washed away on self-criticism and increasing resilience for this bounce back from setbacks as well. So, Dr. Tom Woll, what about you? Anything you want to add to that question? I want to invite you to that as well.
Well, the revolutionary change leadership model is essentially a team leadership model, because without the team, you ain't got no engine. Right? It's going to be a beautiful car, but it ain't going anywhere.
Right.
And so obviously this question is so critically important, because you have to create a team where everyone's got their back. And most folks know what that means. That means that if I need help today, exactly as you were saying earlier, if I need help today, you're going to give it to me. And if you need help tomorrow, I'm going to give it to you. And that's the level of passionate commitment that comes from the positive energy that you can generate by having a good vision and a solid plan.
Absolutely. Amen to that. So thank you for that. Thank you all for responding to that audience member's question. Hopefully that was helpful for the individual as well as for all of our listeners as well. So, but we're going to take another quick short break. When we return after this brief commercial, Tom's going to kind of put the pieces together for us and really begin to understand this revolutionary leadership model from a whole perspective. And so please stay tuned, and we'll be right back with more on Leadership Matters with the People's Doctors, informing leaders, inspiring solutions. We are back with more on Leadership Matters with the People's Doctors. For those who are just joining us, again, I'm Undraye Howard, lead co-host this afternoon with my co-host, Dr. Sheryl White, Dr. Loretta Howard, and our very special guest today talking about the revolutionary leadership model, Tom Woll, and helping us learn more about how to balance ourselves as leader with these four capacities that we've been discussing as part of this model. So let's kind of wrap this up and kind of pull the pieces together in terms of how does all this come together. So Dr. Sheryl, I'm going to pass the next question on to you.
Okay, well, I think Dr. Dre, you did a nice job of maybe talking about each of those components being integrated. And I'm wondering, Tom, if you could share with us, what does it feel like when you're operating on all four cylinders, and that meaning cognitively, emotionally, behaviorally, and spiritually at the peak of one's wellness? What might that look like, feel like?
I've been there and experienced it firsthand and experienced it with organizations that I'm working with. But I'm reminded of the old Roman story where they would say, when the conquering hero returned riding a chariot, there would be someone who would be in his chariot whispering in his ear, "This is fleeting, this is passing." And the reason that's so important is that you can have success and everything is working, but every major change initiative wants to die every 90 days, which is why you have to build your plan specifically around 90-day segments. This is what we're going to accomplish this 90 days. And we've got a measure to be able to say whether we've got there or not. And when we get there, we get together and we celebrate. And we haven't, we make plans to make the adjustment. But then we say, now, folks, let's do it again. And it's never over because of the tendency within the change arena to revert to the norm. You got to keep pushing. It's not the myth of Sisyphus. It doesn't have to fall back down, but you got to keep that boulder moving up the hill or it will fall back down. But when it's all working, it sure does feel great.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, one more question regarding integrated wellness. What boundaries do you set to ensure your revolutionary leadership enhances rather than depletes your well-being?
Well, I have never seen two leaders that are the same. And so the needs of every leader are unique. When I work as a coach with a leader, one of the first things I want to do is I want to find out what do they need. All right, in part because as coach, it's part of my job to help them to meet their needs. But the first step before you can help them to meet their needs is for them to identify their need. And the key here is that every leader has to say that it's critically important that they meet their needs. And here's the reason. We know that if we don't meet our needs proactively, then our emotions will cause us to try and meet our needs reactively, right? And so we want to be positive and we want to be focused. And when we are positive and focused, then everyone feels better. When our needs are being met, it's like, it's a good day. It's a good day. And I was working with someone just this week, and he said, Tom, I'm so dedicated to what I'm doing. I haven't taken a vacation in 3 years. And I said, I understand that you might be working in an organization where they would praise that, but you're not talking with someone right now that's going to praise that. Let's talk about you needing to take the vacation you have earned. And that's the kind of stuff that a good, strong change leader got to talk with people about. You got to take care of yourself, and you should not feel embarrassed by meeting your needs.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. Absolutely, definitely. Excellent. This is great, Tom. And I want to dig so much more into the revolutionary leadership because there's so much that certainly you could share, but I know our time is limited. But changing just direction just a little bit, we ask all of our guests this, have been asking them this question. to share their response to this particular question. What do you hope for, and what brings you joy?
Well, let me answer the first one professionally and the second one personally. What I hope for is that throughout this great country of ours, we can create a system of care that families can turn to in a user-friendly way to meet their most basic needs, and that we don't have to tear families apart in order to get families help. All right, so that's professional. On a personal level, what brings me joy is spending time with my wife, my sons, and their families. I mean, it truly, my greatest source of positive energy comes from my family. And I'm very proud of that. I'm happy about it. And whenever I get a chance, I spend time with them because I know that that will recharge my batteries.
Absolutely. And it sounds like that would certainly be acting on all four cylinders in terms of the capacities associated with revolutionary leadership models. So that's wonderful. Wonderful. Excellent. Tom, as we kind of wrap up here, so what are your final thoughts on this revolutionary leadership model, or what tip you would leave us or for the listening audience? And we'd love to know how we can reach out to you if we want to learn more about the revolutionary leadership model.
Well, you can reach me through TOMWOLL at ZOOMinternet.net, Tom Woll at ZoomInternet.net. And if you want to just have a conversation about change leadership, I'd be honored to find a time and do it. But I mean, if you end up actually wanting to have something happen, you might want to talk to both Dr. Howard and Tom Woll, because we're in this together. And I would love to see an opportunity be created where Dr. Howard and I could get back together again and work on this model together. So, and maybe some people might want to, Dr. Howard and I have done the course in the past before on this topic, and maybe some of you might be interested in having us do that again. I would love to do that again with Dr. Howard.
Absolutely. And I would love to do that again with Dr. Tom Woll. Absolutely. Tom, this has been just great. And again, once again, thank you for being with us today. And really just thank you for trying to break this revolutionary leadership model down. I think you did very well with this. And I think our listening audience certainly learned something from this, and certainly can reach out to us for more questions and to dig deeper into this. So we want to also invite our listening audience to send us topics, throw us a comment. How do you think the show is going? What can we improve upon, or what can we not improve upon? What's going very well with the show? We'd love to hear your voice about that. So send that to Leadership Matters Questions. That's all together, Leadership Matters Questions at InnoVisions, INNOVisions.org. Leadership Matters Questions at InnoVisions.org. This has been great. Dr. Loretta, what do we got coming up next week?
Next week, they will definitely want to tune in again, because we have another dynamic speaker on mental health advocacy. Her name is Dacia Moore. She's the founder of Second Wind Counseling and Consulting. She also is adjunct professor at Webster University, Penn Valley Community College, where she is shaping the next generation of mental health professionals. She has a radio show, and she is just an advocate for mental wellness among people. So I'm looking forward to hearing what she says. She's also an author, so she's got so much to say. So looking forward to it.
Wow, I'm looking forward to it as well. Absolutely. And again, Tom, again, we just want to thank you again for joining us today as well. And to our listening audience, you can join us every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, or download our podcast at your convenience on demand. So until next time, it's been such a great pleasure. And thank you for this opportunity with the People's Doctors, informing leaders, inspiring solutions. Keep on keeping on and making